Welcome, dear listeners, to the Carolina Haints podcast, brought to you by Recap Productions and A Darker World. I'm your host, Dan Sellers. The Zealandia Bridge in Asheville, North Carolina, is a beautiful arched stone bridge built in 1909. It was designed by one of the men that worked at the Biltmore estate. The novelist Thomas Wolfe crossed the bridge often as a young boy and mentioned it in his work, Look Homeward, Angel. Despite its historic past, the bridge is best known for the dark history that surrounds it. It is known by most as Helen's Bridge. The story says that a young woman named Helen lived near the Zealandia estate with her daughter. There was little in the world that Helen loved more than her daughter. The estate and the castle that sat on it belonged to John Evans Brown, who made a fortune raising sheep in New Zealand. The legend claims that Helen worked at the estate and would sometimes bring her daughter with her to work. Helen caught the eye of John Evans and they began to have an affair. One day, while Helen was entertaining Evans, a fire broke out in another part of the castle. When it was brought under control, Helen's daughter was found burned to death. Distraught with guilt and sadness, Helen hung herself from the Zealandia Bridge. But the legend doesn't end there. She is said to appear to motorists as they drive under the bridge. Some claim to have car troubles near the bridge. Most often it's the car's battery going dead. Sometimes directly on the bridge. Sometimes days afterward. Helen is also said to wander the grounds around the bridge in a long, flowing gown, asking people if they've seen her daughter. Most people claim that Helen means no harm, while others say that the paranormal presence of the bridge isn't Helen at all, but something darker and evil in nature. They cite the fact that some of the people's cars may break down as much as a week after visiting the place, as proof of the evil existence. A few people have reported seeing monster-like creatures lurking in the dense woods, and some claim to have been scratched and even slapped while at the bridge. Apparitions, orbs, and EVPs have been documented during paranormal investigations. The Zealandia website urges that no one provoke the spirits around the bridge, for some people have claimed to have been followed home by, quote, something they only see out of the corner of their eye, end quote. As with most stories, there are many versions of the legend. Some say that Helen lived in the 1930s, long after John Evans had passed away. Some say she did not work at the estate, but simply lived nearby. All the versions of the story, however, agree that Helen's daughter died in a fire, and that she remains on the grounds today. It's a popular place for local teenagers to visit and try to summon the spirit of Helen by chanting the phrase 3 times, Helen, come forth. I was able to visit Helen's Bridge for the original iteration of Carolina Haints in 2010, and can personally attest it's a pretty damn creepy place. Not far from Helen's Bridge is Chicken Alley, a narrow alley in a populated section of Asheville. The name comes from the fact that many chickens would frequent the alley during the early days of the city. Today, the only chickens found there are in the large mural by local artist Molly Must. This otherwise forgotten walkway is said to be the home of the ghost of Dr. Jamie Smith. Dr. Smith was a prominent Asheville physician at the end of the 19th century. He was easily spotted walking down the street with his medicine bag, wearing his unique attire of a black, wide-brimmed fedora and a long duster-style coat. And he always carried a cane with him, its silver tip clicking on the rough Asheville roads. In those days, Asheville wasn't the hip, eclectic city it is today. It was a rough logging town. After a hard, dangerous week of work at the nearby logging camps, men would flow into Asheville on the weekend looking to let off some steam and have a good time. The bars and brothels stayed open late into the night, and Dr. Smith was no stranger to any of them himself. The good doctor found the Asheville nightlife not only a source of satisfying personal entertainment, but also a business opportunity. It's said that the majority of his practice came from treating the various social diseases that are often associated with brothels. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end. For Dr. Smith, this was in 1902 when he decided to walk into the Broadway Tavern located in Chicken Alley for an early drink before visiting a nearby brothel. But Dr. Smith unwittingly entered the tavern in the midst of a huge bar fight. While trying to break up the melee, he was stabbed in the heart and killed instantly. The man responsible was never caught. A year later, Broadway Tavern burned to the ground. Some say that the ghost of Dr. Smith burnt the place down, because ever since then, a peculiar apparition has been seen lurking in Chicken Alley. He's said to be a shadowy man wearing a long black coat and a wide-brimmed black hat. He carries an old-fashioned physician's bag with a cane, which can be heard tapping as the figure makes its way down the alley. The figure has been reported for over 100 years, and its appearance has stayed remarkably consistent. Valley Crucis, North Carolina, is a small, quiet mountain community located on Highway 194, and its name means Valley of the Cross. Two nearby streams cross at almost right angles in the valley where Valley Crucis lies. They form the rough shape of a cross. It's the home of St. John the Baptist Episcopal Church. Reverend William West Skiles founded Valley Crucis and built St. John's in the 1840s. Accessible by just an old dirt road, the small wooden church sits isolated in an old, lonely ridge with an ancient, weathered cemetery as its front yard. St. John's lost its congregation years ago, and now the nearby Church of the Holy Cross cares for the old building. It is only used for special services and to house the ghost that resides there. Popular legend claims that a new young priest came to St. John's with ideas for growing the small church, but instead the congregation slowly dwindled to nothing. Distraught over his failure, the heartbroken priest hung himself from the bell tower. Unfortunately, the story is completely bogus. There are no records of a new priest ever coming to St. John's, and no record of a suicide within its walls. Reverend Skiles passed away of natural causes in 1862 and lies buried in the cemetery outside the church. But just because the story isn't true doesn't mean there isn't a ghost at St. John's the Baptist Episcopal Church. Too many people have seen and heard things they cannot explain. Tapping noises and footsteps have been heard, and mysterious lights witnessed. A group of App State students ran from the building when all of their flashlights went out simultaneously. Michael Renniger tells the story of Mitch and Rhonda, They parked near the church for some privacy. Just as Mitch was about to kiss Rhonda, she jerked away and whispered, "There's a man watching us." Mitch looked and saw a man, backlit from the light inside the church. He wore a black hat and long coat. Mitch couldn't see the man's face, but could tell that he was not very happy that the two lovers had parked so close to the church. Over Rhonda's protest, Mitch decided to go apologize to the man, who he assumed was a priest from the Church of the Holy Cross. The door was unlocked, and the lights were still on when Mitch entered the church, but he didn't see anyone else there. "Hello," he called, as he made his way down to the pulpit of the small church. "I just wanted to say sorry." But no one answered. Where could the man have gone? The church isn't that big, and after all, the door was unlocked with the lights on. Just then, a chill wind swirled around Mitch, and he screamed his apology to thin air as he ran from the building. As they drove away, he looked in the rearview mirror and noticed that the lights were now off inside the building. A female apparition has also been seen in the area, as well as unexplained gunshots and a woman's crying. But if you go looking for the ghost of St. John's, beware. Something else lurks in the misty shadows of Valley Crucis. The story goes that two men were driving past St. John's Church in a clear autumn night when a shadow leapt from behind one of the graves and crossed the road in front of them. The drivers slammed on the brakes to avoid whatever it was, and when they stopped, the men were staring at a dog. A big damn dog. It was as tall and wide as a full-grown man, and described as part Rottweiler, part bear. Its black fur bristled as the animal snarled, baring its sharp yellow teeth at the car. But what really terrified the men were the beast's eyes. They glowed red in the dark night, as if lit by the very fires of hell. "Do you see that?" the driver asked. "No," said his friend, "and neither do you." The dog began to slowly stalk toward the car, and the driver immediately slammed his foot down on the gas. They raced down the mountain road, skittering around each corner. The man in the passenger seat put his arm over the driver's shoulder and turned to tell him to slow down, that they were safe now. But as he turned, he saw the beast was running after them, and it was gaining. Finally, the car crossed the bridge where the two streams met, and the dog slid to a stop, unwilling, it seemed, to cross the water. And this wasn't an isolated claim. Several people have reported seeing the beast. Some call it the Hellhound. Others say it's the Broadstone Hound. But most know it as the Demon Dog of Valley Crucis. To learn more about Helen's Bridge, check out haunthub.wordpress.com. Check out onlyinyourstate.com. To learn more about Chicken Alley, go to northcarolinaghost.com. And to learn more about the Demon Dog, check out Michael Reniger's Roadside Revenants and Other North Carolina Ghosts and Legends. This episode was written and researched by Jeffrey Cochran and was produced and hosted by me, Dan Sellers. You can check out everything Jeff's up to at his company at adarkerworld.com, and you can check everything that I'm up to at my company at wreakhavocproductions.com. I'm on Instagram at wreakhavocproductions, and I'm on Twitter at Hank vs. the Undead. You can email me any questions, comments, concerns you might have at wreakhavocproductions wrecabit.filmbuffpodcast@gmail.com. Learn how you can support this show and our sister show, the Wrecabit Film Buffs Podcast, at patreon.com/wreakhavoc. You can find the Carolina Haints Podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Please subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave us a review. Every single one helps tremendously, and I'd very much appreciate it. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Tune in then to hear more about the things that go bump in the night.